Hello! In this CMMI Tech Talk, we will discuss two critical areas of the appraisal planning process: the schedule and scope of the appraisal. It is important for an appraisal team leader, otherwise known as ATL, to build a schedule for an appraisal to allow enough time to gather, consider, and reach consensus on the evidence and affirmations collected. A common misconception of appraisal team leaders is that they project that they can get an entire appraisal done in 5 days, regardless of the scope or the amount of objective evidence, artifacts, or affirmations that they need. The key to a successful appraisal is to have enough time to give an honest and accurate appraisal of the state of the organization's processes and performance improvement at the time of the appraisal. Schedule and scope considerations. The areas for consideration that we are going to discuss represent the major considerations for determining an appraisal schedule. It all starts with the organizational size and scope and the CMMI model scope included in the appraisal. Important schedule considerations include the readiness reviews, appraisal team member training, evidence review, and interviews. Along with these, the most important consideration for the appraisal team leader should be time. The appraisal team leader is responsible for communicating these impacts to the organization and appraisal sponsor. Considerations: organizational scope. For larger organizations, it is common that the sampling factors have a significant influence. The larger an organization is, the greater the possibilities that the organization will have multiple locations, organizational units, OUs, and projects and organizational support functions, also known as OSFs. The appraisal team needs to pay close attention to how the organizational support functions are performed and interact with the projects. Unlike a small organization where multiple roles may be filled by a single person, a larger organization may have centralized support groups that support a number of projects or locations. It's also possible that each location or OU might have its own support groups. Unique groups may be assigned to fill specific roles for things like configuration management, quality, measurement, training, and process improvement. Schedule consideration, evidence review. Evidence review takes time. An appraisal team leader will need to make sure the schedule has enough time for a thorough and complete review of the applicable evidence. This can begin during the readiness review or even between the readiness review and the planned conduct phase. If the evidence review during the readiness review is detailed enough to consider characterization of model practices, then the conduct phase of the appraisal starts. The size of the organizational unit may also affect the amount of evidence to consider. A larger organizational unit will likely require more time to review evidence and conduct interviews. More people performing process roles will expectedly mean the need for more interviews or longer interviews to gather affirmations. More interviews mean more time to consolidate and tag evidence between interviews. A small organization may not indicate a smaller schedule. An appraisal team leader will still need to make sure to conduct enough information gathering sessions to collect all the affirmations needed. The volume of evidence may be smaller, but shortcuts cannot be taken with the activities needed to be performed. In a smaller organization, the appraisal may present a bigger interruption to the daily work activities. It can be more difficult to schedule sessions with critical personnel to gather information, and the information may not be organized. Appraisal team leaders will ultimately have to work around their schedule to find the time to gather the necessary information. Schedule considerations. Interviews. Interviews are an integral part of the appraisal process. They give the appraisal team a chance to interact with the organization being appraised. It is important for the appraisal team to establish a rapport with the organization that makes it easy to exchange information. The schedule should include enough interviews to not only gather affirmations, but interact with and involve the people in the organization. This gives the team a broader understanding of the state of the process, and it also gets the people of the organization involved in the appraisal so they feel part of the process. Each interview must be given enough time to gather the needed information. For example, If an individual is being interviewed to cover parts of several PAs, make sure the time allowed for the interview is enough to gather affirmations for each targeted PA. Sometimes that is not possible, so the appraisal team leader will need to include time in the schedule for follow-up interviews. Follow-up interviews can include previous interviewees or new people that weren't interviewed but have important information for the team. If a person fills multiple process roles, the appraisal team leader must decide if it is better to schedule a single, longer interview to cover each process role, or if they should schedule multiple shorter interviews to cover specific roles. Interviews can be mentally taxing for the individual and the appraisal team. This is especially true when the team conducts multiple interviews in a single day. Appraisal team leaders should make sure that the appraisal team stays fresh and focused. They must allow time between interviews or at the end of the day for them to consolidate notes and tag them to specific information needs. This time gives the team a break between interviews, time to focus their thoughts about the previous interview and get ready for the next. In a day with multiple interviews, 15 minutes between interviews is not enough time to properly assess and gather information. Buffer time at the end of each day can help give teams time to review and consolidate the information they collected during the day. Appraisal team leaders must allow time in the schedule for the team to do all steps to process the information they are collecting and evaluate that information. Schedule considerations: time. Time is the most vital resource in an appraisal. There needs to be enough time to review the available evidence, conduct interviews to get all of the needed affirmations, and consolidate the information that is gathered. Sometimes more time will be needed to review additional evidence or conduct follow-up interviews. Be sure to include a buffer in the schedule to be able to do that. When you are scheduling the time for team consolidation, characterization, and consensus, keep in mind how many practices you need to review. As an example, if you are looking at only one project and allow 2 hours for team consolidation, example number 1, a maturity level 2 appraisal for development, dev, includes 19 practice areas with a total of 100 practices to evaluate. Let's assume we're only going to look at the level 2 practices. Since level 1 practices are subsumed by the level 2 practices, it would be at least 76 practices the team would have to look at in depth, assuming that there are no weaknesses and the team does not also have to look at the level 1 practices in depth. 2 hours of consolidation time means about 1.5 minutes per practice for review, discussion, characterization, team consensus, and development of findings. The team must review the practice intent and value statement. They must also review the objective evidence, OE, found, discuss and determine if the practice is met. If the practice is not met, the team must also craft a weakness statement and then characterize and get team consensus. Example 2. A maturity level 3 appraisal for development dev involves 19 practice areas and 170 practices. Again, assuming we do not have to look at the level 1 practices, this would leave 146 practices. Those same 2 hours now only allow for 49 seconds per practice for review, discussion, characterization, team consensus, and the development of findings. Even if all goes smoothly, that is not enough time. If one practice requires 15 minutes of discussion, it will negatively affect the entire schedule. It is dangerous to assume all will go smoothly with consolidation. It almost never does. Keep metrics on the time it takes to complete appraisal activities like full team consolidation and consensus. Appraisal team leaders should document the time it takes to complete appraisal activities, such as full team consolidation and consensus. This data can be used to help plan future appraisals. As a recap, remember these key takeaways. Time is the most vital resource during an appraisal. Make sure you have enough built into the schedule. More evidence, more interviews, more projects, and more practices mean more time will be needed. Just because the scope is small, it does not mean that less time will be needed. You still need to perform all of the necessary appraisal activities. That required set of activities takes time. If you have an inexperienced team or an organization new to the CMMI, you will likely need more time to complete the appraisal. Do not assume everything can always be done in 5 days. It is better for the appraisal team leader, otherwise known as ATL, to assume more than 5 days will be needed, and adjustments can be made later. Be reasonable when establishing your schedule. If activities might take more time will need to be put in the schedule. It is better to have too much time in the schedule than to try to find time or need to extend the schedule. Sponsors typically avoid giving additional time and people for more than what was estimated. Thank you for joining us in this CMMI Tech Talk. To learn more about how the appraisal team leader's role evolves throughout an appraisal, please check out our other CMMI Tech Talks. You can find the links below. If you have any additional questions, please contact us at support.isaca.org.